Welcome to Ready Layer 2 with me, Get.Small. This is a podcast for the founders, innovators, and experimenters building the future of Web3 on Arbitrum. Welcome to the Ready Layer 2 podcast. I'm your host, Get Small, or Don Lee, and I'm joined by Andrew Saunders, returning to the show from Hashflow. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, my friend. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, man, I'm glad we get to catch up here. You guys are doing big stuff, as always, at Hashflow. And the last time we had you on, we really focused a lot on the just marketing in Web3, which is obviously your background. You've been marketing your whole life, made a career of it, came into Arbitrum. You're at Hashflow now. We talked all about what is different about Web3 marketing for Web2, all that kind of stuff. I'll refer the listener back to that episode if they want to dig into that aspect of it. But we did talk a bit about Hashflow, but today we're really going to focus on Hashflow, where you're at now and what you're focused on. And if you would, let us give just a brief intro for yourself, but then I want to get into what is Hashflow, why was it started in the first place? What are you guys building?
Sure, yeah. So Andrew Saunders, first CMO and CSO, so Chief Marketing Officer, Chief Strategy Officer of Hashflow, which we'll dig into in a second. And then before Hashflow was the first CMO of Arbitrum, everyone's favorite layer 2. And then before that, actually built Amazon's global entertainment and culture practice at Amazon headquarters. And then prior to that, various stints at large media companies and was in Hollywood for about 10 years. And then I'm also an active angel investor, both in Web 2 and Web 3, also an advisor for a number of Web 3 projects, and then also a pretty active day trader as well. Yeah.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah. Now, obviously, if anyone's paying attention on crypto Twitter, they see you all over the place all the time. Good memeing, just good times, having fun out there. So we appreciate you for that. But yeah, tell us Hashflow. What is it from a founding concept? Why did they start this thing in the first place? What problem were they trying to solve?
Yeah, absolutely. I can do a little Hashflow history. Basically, the founding team launched Hashflow Alpha in 2021. And then obviously lead investor, we raised $26 million from Dragonfly. For anyone that's not familiar, very experienced crypto native VC, definitely one of my favorites that I've encountered and worked with in the industry. And then also Electric Capital, which is former Dragonfly. And then also from market makers, which we'll talk about market makers in a little bit, but big folks like Wintermute and GSR. Since launch, I think we've cleared over $19 billion in trade volume, obviously executed millions of trades. And then I think if we think a little bit about the problem, what was it created for? What is it trying to solve? It's really, if you look at the average kind of retail trader, I think obviously a lot of folks come in through centralized exchanges. And then as they start to understand the importance of self-custody and the importance of decentralization, they obviously then start to pivot towards DEXs. But I think, again, for anyone that is new to crypto or maybe a less experienced trader, it's still complex, right? Like a lot of these UXs and UIs are challenging to use. It's a cumbersome process, wallet connect, obviously all of that. So I think first and foremost, the complexity maybe of DeFi indexes is definitely one thing we've been trying to solve for some time. And then the other one is AMMs. So, obviously Uniswap, 10,000 pound gorilla, came into the DeFi scene in 2019, but with an automated market maker model. And then obviously, even though AMMs are important, they help solve some of the fragmentation issues and liquidity, they are quite prone to slippage. They're not MEV resistant. And then typically they don't enable cross-chain swapping natively or non-natively. So I think those are the two big ones to point to for sure.
Yeah, right on. So the architecture there was request for a quote in the beginning, which is a little bit unique, at least in my experience. So just if you could talk about that, like what's different about that approach than the typical one that's out there?
Yeah, so I think in 2017, we launched RFQ, or request for quote, which is really an alternative to the AMM model. And I think, again, what does an RFQ actually mean? It means an AMM is a crowdsourced liquidity pool, right? But with an RFQ model, what you have is premium market makers. So again, investors of ours like a Wintermute who basically make the pools. And then because of that versus a crowdsource model, there's the ability to, I think, control obviously sale price and things like that. And so what ends up happening is when you get a price quote using an RFQ, or I think the term a lot of folks are tracking now is intent-based DEX. What it means is that the price before you execute your trade is the price you're going to get. And then because of the hybrid on-chain, off-chain model, it means one, no slippage, which is pretty common in a lot of DEXs. Two, like full MEV resistance. I'll get a little technical, but things like sandwich attacks and front running, those are things you can experience in an A model, but an RFQ actually provides full MEV protection. And then the last is lower gas fees, again, because you're basically getting a hybrid on-chain, off-chain model. As a result of that, less activity happening on-chain, your gas fees go down. So I think, that's a good kind of explainer, I think, on the RFQ front. And then obviously also with RFQ, we now enable native cross-chain swaps. What does that mean? It means there's no bridge. And anyone that's familiar with bridges or that's been in crypto for a long time, there was definitely a season where a lot of major exploits were happening on bridges. And I think the rationale behind that is you have 2 points of vulnerability, right? When you're getting on the bridge, when you're getting off the bridge. And a lot of times human errors can take that into account. So with us, our native cross-chain swapping is powered by Wormhole. So as a result, there's literally no bridge. And the other big thing that I would call out is a lot of times in the past, when I bridged assets, I was getting a wrapped version, which is very simple. It's you see a W in front of the ticker sign, but that's a synthetic asset, right? And so at the end of the day, most traders don't want synthetic assets. They want native assets. They want the actual token. So not only does ours enable you to go between chains without risk and hassle of bridging, but you're also getting native assets. And the thing I would also call out is it's not that you can't unwrap a token, but you're paying gas fees on that, right? So it's another step you have to take.
Yep.
And it's additional money you have to shill out to ultimately get what you want. So again, like just simplifying all of this stuff, not just for experienced degens, but also future retail traders and new crypto traders and things like that. And then last year we launched Hashflow 2.0, which basically shifted us from an RFQ-based DEX into what I would call hybrid aggregator model. And so basically what we have is what's called smart order routing. And so what happens is we still have the RFQ based DEX. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you want to swap from USDC into Arbitrum. There's a good chance a maker is making a pool of that token, right? So you can make that trade, you can execute it through RFQ, no slippage, full MEV protection, lower gas fee. But then I think one of the challenges with an RFQ model is you are beholden to the pairs that the makers are making, right? And they're not going to typically take on super risky assets, and they're also not going to probably make enormous pools around those assets. And so what the aggregator will do is, let's say you want to swap USDC into Pepe, or I'll use Arbitrum as an example, Boner, or Small, or one of these things. A maker may not have that pool. And so now what happens is through smart order routing, it'll still check the RFQ model. It'll say there isn't a PMM pool there. And then it'll actually start to route through all the other pools available on things like Uniswap, SushiSwap, Camelot, Lighter, Balancer, the list goes on. And it'll instantly find you, here is the pool that has the best price. And then you're executing that. And really, I think by pivoting or adding this additional SOR functionality, what it means is that token availability's gone through the roof, liquidity's gone through the roof. And truly, like the second a token gets listed anywhere in any of these pools, it ends up on Hashflow. And one little hack that I love that I think folks are starting to figure out is, let's say a token gets launched on Uniswap on Arbitrum, you can instantly access that liquidity pool through Hashflow, but you can actually bypass that front end fee entirely. And so you're basically getting the exact same token minus that Uniswap front end fee, plus Hashflow trading rewards. Plus, if you're a staker, there's also rev share, which we can talk about. But it's like a quick little explainer for you.
Yeah, and all those little fees definitely add up. Like it's a noticeable difference. And I've done this. You guys got me using your platform during the Hashverse, and previously I would always just throw stuff in Uniswap or a SushiSwap and not even think about it. But if you do them side by side, it's a noticeable difference. And if you're trading a lot, that stuff adds up over time. So
and that's what I've always wanted to do. Yeah, to your point, like I've always wanted to do an aggregate experiment, but I don't think the average person understands, because again, like a lot of times it can be cents on the dollar. But for us, like I've noticed sometimes where I'm getting 10 more tokens or things like that.
Yeah, sure.
And again, to your point, if you start to add these numbers up over time, if you're trading for 4 years and you're making 2 or 3 trades a day, add that number up. It's a lot more than people realize.
Yeah, sure. If you were trading once a month or a couple times a year, it probably wouldn't be worth thinking about. But yeah, active traders, that stuff adds up for sure. So the way you just described it then, so basically you have that request for quote or intent-based core that was the original version of Hashflow. So that's still, or Hashflow, sorry. That's still like the primary thing then, right? So if that's where you would send me first as a trader. If I'm coming to swap something, you would try to route me there first. And if that doesn't exist because of the mechanism you just described, that's when it'll fall back into this aggregator plus model. That is the right term for what you described, aggregator plus. And that's when it'll start to take advantage of everything else that's out there. So,
and the nice thing is it's fully, again, we've tried to like abstract all the complexity away. And so you won't even know that it's doing this. You'll basically go to submit a trade. And then again, via SOR in the background, it does all this routing and then just finds it for you. And so if you're ever, and this is a nice little like tidbit of info, but if you're ever curious, like if you see a trade where there's 0 slippage, that means it's clearly getting cleared by a PMM. If you have to change your slippage or you see even a small slippage amount, that means it's probably going through the aggregator routing.
Because you can get rid of that. Once you get to the aggregator routing, that's just how those platforms work, and that's not something you can scrub away. So that makes good sense.
Yeah.
So what, like, I mean, I feel like it's obvious just based on the way you just described it, but just talk me through like the thinking here going from you've got this functional platform working request for quote, and now you want to add this in there. What was it initially that got the team thinking about it's time to expand beyond this?
Yeah, great question. It's a pretty simple answer. I think, again, like I mentioned earlier, like I'm a day trader, right? And so when I first got here, I knew what some of the limitations were with RFQ and things like that. And I looked at my day trading and how often I was trading, the liquidity I was obviously transferring around. And it was pretty simple. It was like, I want better token availability. I want to be able to access these tokens. And then I think, again, by creating this SOR model, we stepped it up even more. And it's now you can access every token. And then I think same thing with liquidity, where PMMs are obviously providing great liquidity and decent sized pools against things they're willing to make. I want deep liquidity so that if I want to execute a $10,000 trade on a very small cap gem, I know I can do it. But then also if I want to execute a $1 million trade, there's enough depth and liquidity for me to clear that trade. So I think that's really what it boiled down to was token availability and liquidity. Yep. And then again, if you sum that up, it just means, again, a much easier and more seamless user experience. I can go there, I can trade any token. I know that the liquidity is there to execute my trade, et cetera. Yeah.
Yeah, right on. So was there anything unique or any engineering problems or anything specific that your team had to solve and able to, in order to bring this up to market? I think this is probably the simpler of the two, or the more, not simpler, but the more common of the two is this type of model. So you're stacking on something that others were doing a lot else. Was there anything unique about the approach or any unique technical challenges?
Yeah, I think a lot of time and energy actually went into the algorithm because we actually, funny enough, we get a lot of trades executed via other aggregators, right? So if you go on 1inch or you go on Uniswap, I've heard from many trader friends, hey, I've noticed that my trades clear through Hashflow. And then what I typically say to them is, yeah, that makes sense because our algorithm is so good that we beat price 99% of the time. But then I always say to them, like, why not just go to our front end? If you know that you made 5 trades on this aggregator and all of them cleared through Hashflow, why wouldn't you then execute on the Hashflow front end and earn trading rewards against those trades? So I think the biggest thing I would point to is the algorithm because it really does offer you the best prices. We've done price comparisons across the board. You'll even see on CT, a lot of times we'll do comparisons on Solana, comparisons on Arbitrum, comparisons on Ethereum. And again, 9 times out of 10, we're beating those prices.
Yeah, right on. No, that makes great sense. And then a lot of times that's how value is created, right? Like you take things that are working elsewhere, but you organize them in an innovative way that provides something new.
And one other thing I would add, by the way, is also the UX. Basically, like the UX, the UI was updated. We have a really awesome in-house designer that came from Meta. Again, the idea here was create something that is just very easy and simple that removes anything that isn't really necessary or isn't really going to benefit you from making a trade. Because again, if you think about the amount of people that first enter through centralized exchanges who then down the road might say, oh, I want self-custody, I think creating an experience that's just as easy for them to use is key. Right. They're still going to have to connect a wallet. But again, like you'll notice on the website, like it's very intuitive, it's very simple, it's very easy to use. And I think that's how you drive mass adoption down the road.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I like the layout, and it's like you pick the chain and then you get the available tokens for the chain. And what's nice too is when you're doing especially like cross chain things is you also get to pick the other wallet. Even same chain, I've noticed so I can swap out of this wallet, send the results to that wallet all on kind of one nice easy step. And yeah, it's it's intuitive. You have a few things.
And I'll tell you one nice thing. I don't know if you discovered this or not. Obviously, like when we launch new products or when we're in beta mode, I tend to actively use the products because I want to identify any pain points or anything that we want to solve before we release it to the public. And so I had been doing a pretty decent amount of cross-chain swapping between like Arbitrum and Solana, again, powered by Wormhole. And what was cool was that then qualified me for the W airdrop. Yeah. And then because again, I was on Hashflow, I had my MetaMask wallet for Ethereum and I had my Phantom wallet at the time for Solana. Both of those wallets qualified. So, anyone that's been using the cross-chain trading, check both those wallets.
Bonus. Yeah, definitely check both for sure. No, that's awesome. So speaking of Arbitrum, that was the
Yeah.
chain obviously you guys decided to launch this on, and you could have gone anywhere because you guys were working multi-chain and all that. What was it about Arbitrum that made it the ideal first chain to bring this Aggregator Plus model to?
Yeah. Listen, like having been the CMO of Arbitrum, I have a pretty solid understanding of kind of Arbitrum and the community and the traders there. But I think first off, everybody knows this, at least in today's eyes, it is the home of DeFi, right? Like you
Mm,
tend to have very innovative DeFi projects there. There tends to be a lot of active traders there. Even for me, a lot of my trading actually happens on Arbitrum and Solana for obvious reasons and gas prices. But there's a ton of TVL bridge there and ton of capital that folks are obviously playing with and deploying. So I think it's a DeFi chain is kind of the first thing I'd call out. The second is the community. You know this, but like a very vibrant community, very active community. I do think Arbonauts in general tend to share tips with each other and alpha and things like that. And I think that the point of view here was, again, this is a large trading community, a lot of DeFi enthusiasts and lovers. If we can get some Arbonauts in here using the product, word will start to spread. So I think that was a big thing. And then just, we always joke like Arbonauts are unstoppable, but it's just such an active and engaged community. I think you look at a lot of other chains and they're inflating metrics artificially and things like that. But I can tell you, having been at Arbitrum, like there is a very large real user base.
yeah, a lot of real people hanging out here for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
Moon
yeah.
Boys.
There you go. There, yeah, nice. So what's the up to? What did you guys actually launch this? It's been the last couple of weeks that it's been live.
Yeah, it's been live for a couple of weeks. I would say in general, like the reception's been really positive, both from DEXs that have integrated or that we've integrated into to high profile community managers and Coles on the chain. I do tend to talk to a lot of people behind the scenes just to get their take on things. And I would say again, like really positive reception, really positive reaction. I think a lot of folks have said to me things like, it's nice to now have a native aggregator on Arbitrum, so I don't have to jump between DEXs to see where this random token
Yep.
is
No,
available.
true.
So I think that's another thing. It's not just like saving people money or getting them more tokens for their trade, but it's also saving people time. And what I always say too, because this was a big thing for me when I was at Arbitrum, is I really believe in this notion of everyone grows together. And so when you look at the Camelot integration or the Lighter integration, if you make a trade on Arbitrum that goes through one of those pools, it still benefits them. So it's not stripping away value from other projects. If anything, it's helping them, right? So that's another thing that I really like, is just that maybe symbiotic nature of what we're doing.
Yeah, very nice. So as you guys brought this out to market, how were you measuring, or how are you measuring that success? Because you talk about the uptake, and obviously I've seen people talking about it and I've used it myself. As you thinking about this is a show for the founders, and you're very experienced at doing this type of thing, going to market, you should have some pretty specific goals, or some specific goals that you're trying to say, this is what we're trying to accomplish, this is how we're going to measure it, et cetera. What can you talk about here along those lines to help somebody, a younger founder, a less experienced founder that hasn't quite been through that yet?
Yeah, no, great question. I think, again, it depends on the project. So obviously here we're talking about an aggregator or an up-level DEX. So I think for an aggregator, it's really two key metrics. One, daily active users, which, good news, I think our DAUs are up about 30% since launch, which is great.
Nice.
And then the second is trade volume. And I would say, just to point to it, like, I think this week we did 185 million in trade volume. If you go back a little bit, I think we were closer to the maybe 60 to 80 range. So again, very nice uptick in trade volume, very nice uptick in DAUs. I think I'll give you a little, I guess, alpha, but like, I'm a data inspired marketer or a data informed marketer, which means I leverage data to make decisions, but I don't make decisions because of data specifically.
Okay.
And so what we have actually is we have an entire kind of, I've been working on this stuff for a while. We have an entire CRM system integrated into our DEX. And then I have other technologies integrated into that. And so what we're actually able to see is we're able to track all these wallets. So if we're running, for example, programmatic ad units or things like that on crypto native sites, I can see for everyone that clicked on those ads, or for everyone that was exposed to those ads, did they then go to the site? I think site traffic is also a really important one, which I want to add something to that in a second. But then I can see how many people came to the site as a result of those marketing activities. Then I can see how many of those people connected their wallet. Then I can see how many of those people made a trade. How large was the trade? Do they come back and make another trade? Does their average trade size increase over time? So you can track all of this stuff on the back end. It takes a decent level of sophistication and heavy lifting to do it, but that's what we do. And then, for example, I can talk about the incentive program. When we run something like Arbitrum Troopers, where right now you can basically earn Arbitrum on the back of every trade on the Arbitrum blockchain, we can then track all of that stuff. And so if, for example, we see folks manipulating it, or if we think we want to pivot some little element of it, that's very easy to do. And then A/B testing, we can look at, okay, what were the results before that? What were the results after? So I think I always talk about it almost like a faucet. It's, you can keep turning the knob a little bit until you get a really steady flow. But that's the best way to put it. And the other thing I just want to double click on, because I think this is important for folks, is at the end of the day, with most of these marketing activities, what you're trying to do is you're trying to drive awareness, you're trying to build positive sentiment, you're trying to educate on product differentiation. And then really at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is drive as much traffic to your site as possible, and then drive as many first time or repeat trials as possible. And so I think one thing I always suggest to founders is what you want to look at, and this is part of what my technology will do for me, is here's how many unique site visits I got as a result of this activity. And then next to that, here's how many wallets connected. And then next to that, here's how many trades were executed. And so if you see things like a huge number of, or a huge amount of site visits, or your site visits increased by 200%, but then you see an enormous drop off between site visits and wallet connects, or an enormous drop off between wallet connects and trades, that's where you need to start to dig in and go, this might be more of a product issue, right? So are people not connecting wallets because they're having trouble connecting a wallet? Are they not connecting their wallet because they don't understand the value proposition or the differentiation, things like that? And then same thing for folks that connected a wallet but didn't make a trade. Why? Was it that the fees were too high? Was it that they didn't understand they could trade on a layer 2? So I think, like, what I always say to founders and young folks is you got to dig into this stuff, right? Because once you crack the code on why aren't people connecting wallets, or why aren't people going a further step, then those numbers go up. And so let's say you drove 50,000 site visits, but only 1,000 wallet connects. By doing this analysis, you can go from 50,000 site visits to maybe 30,000 wallet connects. So I think, again, it's something to think about. But I do think site traffic is always a really important metric for marketers.
Yeah, that whole line of thinking is so important too, because this is some people think if I build a great product, people will just use it. If it's the best product, it'll just work. And this is where the marketing engineering really comes into it, is understanding how people think, but then understanding what's that journey? Like, what are all of the steps between somebody hearing about Hashflow for the first time and then becoming a daily trader on Hashflow? And there's a lot of steps in between. And to your point, right? If you don't see where they're falling off, you can't address the appropriate issues. So I think that's super important for the founders.
And the other rec I would have for founders is, this is also why you want to do focus groups. And one of the easiest ways to obviously do it is do it on Discord, create gated channels, but really be smart about creating different focus groups with maybe different types of users, making sure they're active users, things like that. But the reason I say this is because what I find, and this isn't even a Web3 thing, this is also a Web2 thing, is you have a lot of founders where they think their product is perfect, or they think their product is the best product out there. But again, that's founder fallacy. And so that's when you want to go in with these focus groups and have these questions, and maybe do a survey monkey, or maybe go ask very specific questions. But by doing, that's where you'll start to find out some of these missing pieces of maybe people aren't connecting a wallet for X, Y, or Z reason, which we hadn't considered, but it has become very clear in the focus group, right? Or maybe they're not making trades because folks are more focused on stacking right now, or they've already deployed all their dry powder into their bull bags, right? So these are the questions that you want to dig into and ask with focus groups. And same thing, I'll use GameFi as an example. With GameFi, probably very similar. You're looking at site traffic coming to your game, you're looking at wallet connects, and then rather than swaps, you're probably looking at average play time, or you might be looking at total number of interactions, depending on how your game is built. But you follow a very similar model, and then same questions. People aren't connecting the wallet. Why? Maybe they don't think the game looks fun. Maybe you need a flashy trailer video. Or why? Maybe they think this game takes 4 hours to play, even though it's only a 20-minute game. So these are the things you want to dig into and try to solve for.
Yeah, no, awesome advice. I think important, regardless, to your point, whether it's DeFi or game or whatever, this is, or Web3 or Web2, doesn't matter. This is the understanding how the customer gets to where you want them to be so you can serve them is key.
Exactly.
So tell me more about the, you mentioned I'm going to say it wrong, the Arbitrum Troopers,
Ship Troopers.
Arbitrum Troopers, there you go. You just said it, but I couldn't pull it. So tell me more about that. Where did that come from? What's that idea? Is that tied to this launch, or is this just similar timing? Talk to me more
Yeah,
about
so I
that one.
think, listen, like when I was at Arbitrum, obviously like grants were given to early builders and projects. So we had the equivalent to about $700,000 worth of ARB tokens, which may have gone up by now based on Arbitrum performance. And so I think at the end of the day, it was pretty simple. It was like, we knew we wanted to launch Aggregator Plus on Arbitrum. And then at the end of the day, you want to drive first time trials, you want to drive repeat usage and build loyalty. And again, I've talked about this on other podcasts. Like, I'm really in this industry to raise up the 99% and help them. And my POV was submitted a governance proposal. It passed 100% with flying colors. And head to hashflow.com, you'll see all the instructions there. But it's very simple. It's if you go on the Arbitrum blockchain and you trade into stables, you earn a certain amount of ARB per USDC spend. And then obviously, if you're trading into more kind of long tail assets, you earn a different amount of Arbitrum on there. And so very simple. It's go there, make a trade, experience the product, earn some ARB. And then hopefully people then start to understand, man, here are the benefits of using this product. I'm going to keep using it. And by the way, I'm going to keep earning ARB. And so the way we're running that program right now is it's active, it's live until all $700,000 have been allocated. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So it could go fast, could go slow. It depends on us, right?
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So what's next for this platform, right? This is the initial launch on Arbitrum. Do you guys got additional plans for it on Arbitrum? Do you got additional plans for it on other chains? Where's it going?
Yeah. Sure. So with Arbitrum, I think it's pretty simple. As new tokens get listed on Camelot, Lighter, Uniswap, Pancake, et cetera, they're going to instantly be available on Hashflow, right? So token availability will just continue to increase as more and more folks make pools in these places. Liquidity depth will increase even more. So obviously, as more retail traders come in or TradFi comes in, that's going to benefit them. In terms of what's currently under the hood, we are going to start to expand availability of tokens on Solana, which is great because obviously you have, again, that native cross chain between Arbitrum and Solana and Ethereum and Solana. And then aside from that, I think, again, if you take a step back, I'll put my like day trader hat on. Great example this week, like Base is blowing up with meme tokens and things like that, right? We don't have an integration with Base, right? So at the end of the day, I think it's pretty safe to say like we will start to expand this beyond Arbitrum to other chains, because I think at the end of the day, what I really want to have, and I think what we all want to have, is really just a simple central place for you to do all your DeFi activity. And so if all of a sudden there's this hot token on this chain and hot token on that chain, I can just access those instantly. So we'll start expanding. I would say when we think about what chains are next, there's folks that have obviously active main nets that we're already talking to. But then there's also folks that are either in testnet phase or don't even have a testnet yet that we're talking to. And I think it's for strategic reasons across the board. This chain might have a burgeoning community. This chain, because we talk to all these folks on a regular basis, might already have 250 projects about to deploy that I'm bullish on. But I think, again, like chain expansion, the future is multi-chain. That's definitely coming. The second thing is just like elevating the core experience. So again, whether you call these kind of micro improvements or tweaks, but really leaning into like user feedback and user asks and things like that to just, again, try to create the best, most seamless, easiest place for people to trade. I think that's another big one. And then obviously we also have, I don't know if I talked about this, but we have our rev share staking program. And again, very community focused team. 50% of all the revenue comes in is actually given directly back to the community. And then we also have buybacks and things like that also help support the community indirectly. And so for HFT stakers, all of that rev share that's now increasing as a result of this launch and expansion and incentive program, they get to share in that. So that's really exciting. So I would say those are the big things. And then the other thing to call out, I'll give you some like real alpha, is we have been developing another product, which is obviously still in development phase. But again, when I think about my trading and maybe other activities that I want to do or other things I want to access, that's what we're building there. And so think of it almost like Aggregator Plus will continue to expand and scale and all that. But then we'll also now have another product that offers you very different options of things to do that you may want to do, but maybe not on Hashflow or not in that type of experience. Yeah.
Okay. So on that one, I guess simple way to put it is I didn't quite follow you there. Like the new product's going to allow me to do what not on Hashflow? Like I missed it.
It's going to enable you to do other things that you currently can't do on Hashflow. I've seen the prototype, I've used it, and it's very exciting. And I think, again, like there are current Aggregator Plus users that may want to also use that product, but I also think there's another pool of users that are going to find it quite interesting. So that's all I can give you for now, but
Okay,
it's
fair enough.
very
We just know something cool's coming that's got you
cool.
excited, and you're like us, so we'll be excited about it too. So all good. All right.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you guys are working on too is the Hashflow token itself is going to be going multi-chain. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right now the HFT token's available on Ethereum and it's also available on BNB. And I think like it's pretty simple. I do trade on BNB, but as a US resident, it's very hard to access that chain.
Yeah.
Took me a decent amount of time to figure out like an easy way to do it. And really what that means is for a lot of folks, you're trading on Ethereum, which means high gas
Pain.
fees and
Yep.
things like that. And those are obviously going to increase as the bull continues. And one of the things I said when I first got here was like, as a day trader, and I do have a bag of HFT that I purchased myself, I want to be able to trade that actively. And I don't want to do that on Ethereum. So I have actively traded on BNB chain, but I think again, being able to expand the token to Arbitrum means now everybody on Arbitrum can make swaps on Arbitrum. I won't talk about beyond Arbitrum where it's going, but again, it's very simple. Like we talk about this notion of just simplification and user experience. And so if you're interested in the token and you want to trade the token, how do we remove all the pain points, frictions, and barriers that you currently have or don't have to make that experience easier for you? So that's the TLDR on it. Yeah.
Nice. Very nice. And then just because we have a show here for builders, I'm curious,
Yep.
are there things available from Hashflow, things like APIs, anything that like a builder could use or an opportunity for other
Sure.
builders, whether it be on Arbitrum or elsewhere, to take advantage of the stuff that you guys are doing, build it into their platforms, et cetera?
Oh, yeah. So for sure. So like we have API integration. So that's how kind of the market makers work with us. So we have actually, just to kind of give you examples, like we have a lot of DEXs that'll reach out to us and say, hey, could you integrate into us? For the most part, like absolutely. We do obviously vet and do some due diligence. And then we've had other folks actually, like to give you examples, we've had some wallets, same thing at a lot of wallets now are doing in wallet swaps, which I actually think are pretty great. They're an easy to use experience. The challenge with them is I've noticed that like a lot of times you're not getting great prices or you're getting some slippage or
Agreed.
things like that. So we've had multiple wallets on chains reach out to us and say, hey, would you integrate into our in-wallet swapping so that we can get the benefits of Hashflow in those trades, meaning the in-wallet swap prices go down.
Yeah.
Again, things that are cleared through RFQ, slippage goes down, things like that. We've also actually, funny enough, I advise some folks, we've had projects reach out that aren't even DeFi projects. They might be more data projects or things like that have said things like, hey, I've got folks coming to my site for this reason, whether it's gaining some alpha or doing some research, but I don't have a trading platform. Can we then either integrate you into our platform or drive traffic to your platform so that folks can take this data and then action on it, right? So yeah, those are some good examples. But for the most part, I think again, like we've got a pretty sizable, pretty experienced dev team. So a lot of these integrations only take us about a day to do. And so for us, it's pretty simple. It's really cost benefit. It's like, how much bandwidth do we have right now? What's the opportunity for us? What's the opportunity for them? And then it just becomes a timing thing from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Awesome. And then in terms of roadmap, we already talked about something cool's coming down the road. One other thing I was curious about, if you guys have any plans for a Hashverse season 2.
Hashverse.
I know we had a lot of fun with that. Me and my donkey friends. Curious what's going on there.
I will say as a day trader, I also love the Hashverse. So the alpha on Hashverse the Hashverse season 1, it was built on Ethereum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the challenge with that is like, when you're in a trading competition like that, you want to make a lot of trades, right? Yeah. And as a result, you don't want to rack up insane gas fees. Season 2, I don't know if I've said this publicly, but like it will be built on Arbitrum, which is great, which means you'll be able to spend way less money on gas, be much more active in there. There's probably also some additional surprises coming. Like for anyone that remembers from season 1, we airdropped a free weapon into all the active players' wallets. Yep. And that was done for 2 reasons. One, we wanted people to be able to engage because, case in point, like the swords were selling for $800 and things like that. We didn't want access to capital to be like a barrier to engagement and enjoyment. So we basically were like, you know what, let's create this new weapon that does a little less damage. Let's give it to everybody. And then obviously we had a pretty sizable kind of reward that went to individual players, but also teams. So I would say with season 2, gas fees will go down, additional surprises and unexpected twists and turns. I can't give you timing, but I'll give you a little background. I think Again, with Aggregator Plus, like huge priority right now, obviously to expand that
Sure.
and get it active on other chains. And then obviously with this new product, obviously priority is get this thing done, get it to market before retail all comes back. So I would say in terms of timing, like it's really just contingent on those timelines, which I can't share, but I know those timelines in my head. So it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. It's working. It's making its way. So that's all good. No, it's definitely make a big difference to have that up on Arbitrum with the trading
Yeah,
fees, like you
for
said.
sure.
I think you probably see a lot more engagement with that model for sure.
100%.
So,
Yeah.
which means a lot more fun.
Exactly. Cause even for me, like I was very active. I think I like my best, I think I placed like third or fourth in one competition, but I racked up like $100 in gas fees on it, you
Oh
know?
yeah,
So
yeah, it added up.
yeah, I mean, yeah. And then when you get the reward in the end, obviously you're doing the math and you're saying, how much did I spend? How much did I make? What's my net profit? But again, if we can just bash that gas fee number way, way down, obviously
Yeah,
it just makes
especially
it
now
makes
it's
everything
almost
better.
zero. Yeah,
Exactly.
it's pretty much free to trade at this point. So
Thank you, Jack.
that'll be nice. Yeah, right. Very nice. So that's the gist of what I wanted to cover here, man. Aggregator Plus
Yeah.
coming out. You guys got the incentives on ARB. Obviously, adding this fantastic new tool to the ecosystem, which is awesome. Anything else you guys got coming down the pike that you want to talk about, or anything else interesting on your radar you want to give about while you got folks online?
No, I would just say the biggest thing is like jump into the Arbship Troopers program because again, like really what we're saying is, hey, come try the product for the first time. And again, like you're a great testimonial because I know for a fact you used it and as a result,
Oh,
you
yeah.
continue to use it. Again, like we have an enormous incentive program right now with $700,000 to give away to real traders. And so I would just say to all the Arbonauts out there, come make your first trade, earn some ARB, see if you like it. If you do, hopefully you'll come back. If you don't, go on Discord, tell us what you'd change, tell us what you'd add, tell us what you'd remove
Mhm.
so that we can just evolve this and continue to make it a better and better experience for you so that you're going to come back. But again, I would just say as an active trader, I use the platform all the time because it's resolved so many issues and pain points for me. I know I'm always getting the best price. I know on my RFQ trades, there's no slippage and full MEV protection. So it's
Mhm.
hard for me candidly to go anywhere else because I'm making trading HFT trading rewards on every trade. Now I'm also making ARB rewards on every trade. And I also stake my own money. So I'm getting rev share. So it's a no brainer. I always just say it speaks for itself. You just have to try it.
Yeah. And if you think about all the incentives stacking up too, we talked about all those fees adding up and dragging you to the negative. But if you
Yeah.
counter that also with some benefits on the other side, it's kind of like interception return for a touchdown kind of thing.
Exactly.
You're getting on both sides. So I'll say just for me personally, it's absolutely worth checking out. I remember the first time we were doing it for Hashflow, obviously, or Hashverse. And I remember I was going to do a swap on something. I'm going to make up numbers, but it was $20 to do a swap. And I was like, I don't pay that. And I looked over and it was $11 or $8. I don't remember what it was, but it was like substantially different. I'm like, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to do this from now on. I actually tweeted at you and I did that. And I remember you responded to it. I was like, yeah, no, it was a nice little difference. It made a difference to me. So I'll just say that me personally, go ahead, check it out. Like it's at least worth a look. Good UI, obviously a good team behind it. And you're always out in the community trying to do good work with us, for us. So we appreciate you, man. As always, appreciate you coming and spending the time with us here today. And Hashflow, Andrew Saunders, Aggregator Plus, check it out.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, you bet, man. That's it for Ready Layer 2. Hopefully it worked on all 3 live channels, YouTube, Sanko, and X throughout all of this. I'll encourage all of you to check out Sanko TV, though. A new platform. Obviously, we're Arbitrum builders here, and we should be supporting the other Arbitrum builders. So I got something really cool going on there. And I encourage you all to check it out. Thanks again, Andrew, for the time. Thank you all for showing up, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for listening to Ready Layer 2. If you're an Arbitrum builder with a story to share, then hit me up on Twitter at GitSmall, GITSMOL. Learn more at getsmall.com.